CJ on the track.
Black Scully on check. Got a little Bull Rush t-shirt on check. Welcome to another marvelous episode. On today's docket, I forgot to actually upload this image. So before we get into today's docket, that's the old one. Did I ever download the new one? I did. Alrighty. So there we go. We're looking much better now. On today's docket, we're going to react to the AP poll, top 25. Interesting things there. There was something that I predicted over the weekend that I'm frustrated that I predicted over the weekend, but it is what it is. I predicted it, it is what it is anyway. Brian Kelly was fired, and a lot of times I have these emojis just up there. I just leave them up there just because it matches the overall scheme of it. So I would never laugh at anybody getting fired, by the way. So I don't hope you guys think that was intentional. I could have changed it, but I didn't. And it is what it is. I just leave it the way I leave it. He's fired. We'll look at what that means for the overall landscape of the coaches carousel. We'll also kind of tier these schools as well. We'll talk about the buyout. We get into the intricate details and things that he could have done better, and then some of the onus on the athletic director there, because I never thought he was a hand in glove fit. I remember talking a lot in the offseason by saying, yes, I get that LSU has an outstanding roster. I just didn't even know, like, you could look at their roster and you say, hey, just on paper, this may be the most talented roster, not even of this year that we've seen in the last few years, right? Ohio State, certainly 2024, a year ago, would be on that list as well. But when you just start looking at these teams and you seeing that they're not getting the desired results that they want, it's a little bit frustrating. So we're going to get into all the intricate details for that. Also, we're going to look at this race for the G5 playoff bid. Now, at one point, I thought G5 had two routes, and I thought they can get an at-large bid. I truly believed it. I say at-large because in the end, it'll be at-large. But I'm talking about a team like USF. If they could have, ran the table, they could have gotten, forget the G5 bid. They could have gotten in, and also UNLV before Boise State put BTA to them. They could have also just got in as a team. So when you look at it, I was like, G5 could certainly get two teams in this year. But I think where we're at now, we're about to get some serious cannibalization. And when we're looking at the G5 playoff race, it's gonna really boil down to, I think, one conference plus one maybe. But when you look at the American Conference and you look at what's about to happen in this conference with the elite teams, and they all have to play each other down the stretch, I think it's outstanding. And then we're also going to look at the Mountain West, where Boise State is surging in the right direction. Of course, we remember the USF loss, not a good loss for them. Notre Dame is 28-7. I get that loss, but they're surging. They just beat the crap out of UNLV not so long ago. So we're going to really look at and break down this G5 playoff bid, and I think we got some interesting things here, to be completely transparent with you. Also, we're gonna do some previews this week. As always, we're gonna do Penn State versus Ohio State. That preview, I think that's an interesting game. Could it end up the way that Indiana and UCLA ended this past weekend? Absolutely. But I think Jim knows this game means something for him, even though Penn State is going in that game with Ethan Grunkmeyer instead of Drew Aller, because he's injured, of course, for the rest of the season. That was interesting. And then a dandy of a game, we got Cincy versus Utah, and it's going to be an outstanding game. It's one of those late night games, so me and Jalen will kind of have to figure out. I don't know if you guys saw, we did our debut of the recap, and actually I don't think he was going to be available next weekend anyway, so that's kind of a good thing. I would love to do the show live, of course, but it's kind of a good thing because I really want to see the Cincy and Utah game. So that's on our today's docket. Governor of College Football, hashtag GoCFB. CFB Nation, your only college football destination. Let's get it. Governor of College Football, we're going to recap ACC.
Hey, that's
Two
CJ
great
on
defensive
the
minds.
track.
They have to be better on that side of the ball. Alrighty, let's go ahead and get into the news. We're just going to recap some of the games that really caught my eye this past weekend. The Memphis defeating USF game. The writing was on the wall, and I even did a preview for that game. And in my opinion, the writing was on the wall, and the only way that the writing was on the wall, in my opinion, is if Brendon Lewis played. And he was certainly a huge X factor here. That was one of the games I thoroughly enjoyed. And I got to a point, I'm like, USF is up 14. It's in the fourth quarter. I didn't think that Memphis was designed, even though they can't score points in bunches. I always think of them as a team that go ahead, get a lead. We're gonna play, stout defensively, but when you play a team like USF, if you don't plan on scoring 30 or more points, you probably won't win the game. That's just the nature of it because they can put up. Alex Golesh got that team playing outstanding. They can just put up points and punches. So I caught myself flipping back and forth between Ole Miss and Oklahoma. Ole Miss is a really intriguing team to me. They're really intriguing. I really like that team. I really like what Lane Kiffin is doing. I think we're kind of seeing growth in Lane Kiffin. And, of course, I never coached before. Yes, that's a lie. I have coached. I coached basketball. I forgot. Literally, at the Little League level. So I have coached before, but I haven't coached at the level. He's coached at all the ranks. He's coached at. But just monitoring him over the years and seeing things that just didn't pan out and seeing him now. Like just seeing the progression, seeing what he's doing with his quarterbacks there, what he did with Matt Corral, what he did at times with Luke Altmaier, what he did with Jackson Dart, what he's doing with Trinidad Shambliss and Austin Simmons. And we always talk about quarterback whisperers, and one of the names that come up a lot, Lincoln Riley. Most of the times because people don't like Lincoln Riley and don't really think he's a quarterback whisperer, and that's neither here nor there. Or they don't think he developed quarterbacks, and also that's neither here nor there as well. But Lane Kiffin is a quarterback developer. I think we can say that he's a quarterback developer, and his team is just playing outstanding. And the post-game interview was outstanding. But let's get back to this Memphis and USF game. So I was flipping back and forth between the games, and I always go back to the conversation that Moon and Ryan Silverfield had at American Media Days, and when he said it's tough to win in Memphis, like he put that out there in the atmosphere. I'm not going to go against what Coach said. I'm just not – me personally, I'm just not going to do that. I can't go against what he said. Past decade, they – top 3 of most wins out of any team. That's at the G5 ranks or at the P4 ranks. And they have one of the longest active win streaks currently with the amount of times that they win in that stadium. It's difficult to go in there. Ask USF how it's difficult, the game that they controlled, how difficult it is to go in there. Ask Arkansas how difficult it is to go in there. That atmosphere is just unparalleled. And it's difficult to win. Like, I thought it was the type of game that if Alex Golesh said, hey, how would you like the game to How would you like this game to go? This is the way he wanted the game to go. Up 10 at halftime, up 14 at the fourth quarter. You did your job. It was just a lack of execution at the end of the fourth quarter, which I feel like truly hurt them. Byron Brown, I had this conversation with Jalen, and I guess I'll have this conversation with you all as well. I was like, what do you deem Byron Brown? Because he's such a unique player. He really is. Like, I don't think he's somebody that's going to wow you statistically. I don't think he's somebody that's going to wow you with what he does on the field, but he's a football player. I think I would say probably Diego Pavia fall into that category, and maybe even Haynes King, but I think Haynes King is definitely propelled into the Heisman ranks, even without the stats, but just, you talking about week in, week out, I don't think there's a player who puts his team more on his back in the country than Haynes King. And if he can't go or he's not going, he has to work. Other things cannot work. Like, you watch the Wake Forest game, a game that actually Georgia Tech should have lost. But when you look at that game, you say, hey, if Haynes King don't make this play, Haynes King don't make that play, guess what? Georgia Tech don't win the game. And that's 100% how you feel about it, in all honesty. But, yeah, Byron Brown, I think he's one of those guys that he will get invited to some post-All-Star event that will help propel you for the NFL draft, whether it's the Reese Senior Bowl. I'm sorry, it's no longer Reese Senior Bowl. That's why I just call it the Senior Bowl now. Or the East-West Shrine game. I'm wondering what scouts would think about him or their utilization of him, because he can run a rock. Really, really tough. He's a deep ball thrower. He can throw the ball really well. I'm just interested to see, like, what type of project is he at the NFL level. I think my comp for him will probably be Tyrod Taylor. Granted, I'm terrible at comps, but the reason being is, one, he's an electric runner, and two, he's a great deep ball thrower. He throws a great deep ball, and Tyrod Taylor did. Him and Sammy Watkins, he would struggle in between the hashes with that deep ball. He would throw really well. So, yeah, walking in Memphis is so hard to do, and we're going to really break down this American Conference and the beauty of the American Conference right now, and why, in some ways, I believe that the G5 playoff winner will come from this conference, just because this gauntlet that a lot of these teams are about to go through, it ain't no joke. It 100% isn't a joke. And it's really going to be outstanding to see. Speaking of which, I just spoke of Haynes King. King for Heisman is something that I've been seeing all across social media, and deservingly so. you look at him when he's done these last 3 years. I thought in ways he had a down year last year. I think we saw a spectacular play out of him in that 2023 season. He was a little bit turnover prone. So I think you could see that's what Brian Key, who mantra is running the ball, who is an offensive lineman at heart. I think that's where you got to see a little bit of that coming to fruition, where he is protecting the ball. And this year, like I say, he just continues to put Georgia Tech on his back. And I've saw some vernacular and some verbiage out there, and I'll address it right here. Who have they played? Dude, do you know how it is easier to lose games in this sport of college football than it is to win games? It's much easier. There's so many ways you can lose a game. You look at Florida State. Florida State was the darling of the sport, after they defeated Alabama in a way that a lot of people's like saying, Florida State can actually win the ACC. You look at Miami. Miami's like, wow, that hurricane train is real. They ran into Louisville, and 4 interceptions by Carson back later, they lost. It is so easy to lose in this sport. So I hate when people use that vernacular. Well, who have they played? And I get it. You look at certain gauntlets in the Big Ten, certainly certain gauntlets in the SEC, and hell, certain gauntlets in the American, because the American is going to have some outstanding play down the stretch. I cannot wait to get to that part of today's show, because we're going to talk ball talk during that segment. But that vernacular of, who have they played, I've always hated that, because it's so easy. And that's at any level, and that's with any sport. It's easier to lose than it is to win. Yeah, that's just the way it works. So they've handled business. They played who has been in front of them, and they've handled business. Yes, Clemson is the team that we thought they were going to be. Wake Forest is trending in the right direction. Oh, by the way, Wake Forest should have beat Georgia Tech. Wake Forest just beat SMU this past weekend in an ugly style game that I didn't think that was in their kind of in their catalog. I didn't think they could win a type game like that. 13-12. They really shut down Kevin Jennings, which I didn't expect to see, honestly. So you look at Wake Forest. I think Wake Forest is a pretty solid team in the ACC, and they'll be right there in the thick of things. So I hate when people use that vernacular of the only time you should ever hear that, I think, and the only reason why people use that is when they're a fan of a team and their team got a couple losses, and it's like, who have you played? Like, okay, pal. But Haynes King is playing out of this world. Brent Key, I know he's Georgia Tech through. He loves that place. He played there, offensive lineman there collegiately. How do they keep him? I know there's some big names in this coaching carousel. There's a lot of great jobs there. There's going to be a program that offered that guy an awful lot of money. There's a team in Blacksburg who's willing to invest. They know that they now know. I don't know why they didn't know before. And AD kind of admitted that Brent Pry didn't have the resources that he needed in order to win in the ACC, and they need to spend more money. So that's why they are taking this coaching thing very seriously. They got Bruce Arians to help with the selection of the coach. I thought Philip Montgomery was doing really well the first couple of games. They lost the last few games. It'll be interesting to see, but I tell you what, there's going to be a program that offer Brent Key a lot of money, and I'm not sure if Georgia Tech's ready for it. And they probably need to do what we've seen Indiana do. Another team just did it this past weekend. I think it was Ole Miss, but it was kind of already in his contract, win X amount of games, and then he gets the boost in pay. But Lane Kiffin is the hottest ticket in town. I'm not sure where he ends up, but he's definitely the hottest ticket in town. But back to Georgia Tech, really good program. Can they win the ACC? Absolutely. Can they beat Georgia on the last game of their season during rivalry week? Abso-freaking-lutely they can. They could have beat them last year, and in some ways should have beat them a season ago, and they're better this year. So watch out for Georgia Tech. They're certainly trending in the right direction. I love what I see, and I know Syracuse, Ricky Collins is at quarterback. Stephen Jelly has been hurt for a few weeks now, and he is out for the season. I've also seen some verbiage and some vernacular out there that Fran Brown should be fired. Based on what? They had a lot of success year one. They had a lot of success early in the season before Steve Angeli was injured in that Clemson game, and he's out for the season. I know some people are going to say, well, that's why you build depth. That's why you make sure you – well, they thought they had something in Ricky Collins. They actually brought Ricky Collins and not Steve Angeli to ACC Media Days. I just don't think Ricky Collins performed the way that he needed to perform during fall camp, and that's why Steve Angeli was able to win the job. But, no, Fran Brown shouldn't be fired. Who are you going to hire that's better than him? I don't get it. That will want to come there. That's not a place with it. Maybe basketball-wise they have a lot of resources. I don't think they spend a lot of money for football, to be honest with you. let's talk about Ole Miss and Oklahoma. After that game, I had this thought in my head, and it bothered me. And I don't know why it bothered me, but I'm going to go ahead and say it right here, right now, that I honestly said after that game, both of those teams are who I thought they were. Oklahoma can beat anybody on any given day, but there are times where I feel like Jean Mateer is rushing. Like he's just like a little skittish to me at times. And if you watch the game, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But they were able to put up points. I haven't seen anybody move the ball the way that Ole Miss moved the ball on Oklahoma this past week. I seen them do it to Georgia, and Georgia was able to shut a lot of it down in the fourth quarter. And I look at what Lane Kiffin and company is doing. I look at Trinidad Shambliss at quarterback. I love that Austin Simmons did get an opportunity to play through a great ball that wasn't caught. I believe that was for like a 2-point conversion that he came in for. But yes, when I look at this Ole Miss team, Ole Miss can beat anybody. Any given Saturday, they can definitely beat anybody. Ole Miss can beat anybody. And I feel strongly about it. And it upsets me a little bit because I look at all of the offseason acquisitions they had made prior to the 2024 season. I said they're getting healthy defensively. I know Pete Colin is a defensive coordinator, and I know in a lot of CFB Nation conversations, we're not the biggest fan of Pete Colin. It's nothing against him. It's just his defense tends to give up points. But this team is for real. This team can beat anybody. Right now, if I had a gun in my head, who I think is the best team in the country, while I love what Ohio State is doing, especially defensively, bar none the best defense in the country, I think Texas A&M has more ways that they can beat people than anybody. You want to play an ugly game, let's play an ugly game. You want to play a defensive game, let's play a defensive game. You want to play a high-scoring game, let's play a high-scoring game. Oh, you want our special teams to get involved, let's get our special teams involved. You want Casey Concepcion to go off, well, let him go off. You want Marcel Reed to have a buck some rushing, let him go off. You want Mario Craver to go off, Mario Craver can go off. I think Texas A&M have more ways to beat teams than anybody else. And what we saw this past Sunday in Baton Rouge wasn't an accident. Let's talk about Vanderbilt. And when we talk about Vanderbilt, more specifically, let's talk about Barton Simmons, the general manager there. Let's talk about Clark Lee, and let's look at these two for a moment. I love the documentary Any Given Saturday, the Netflix special on SEC football, and seeing that these two, born and bred in the state of Tennessee, the rest of their friend group was volunteers. Their friend group would clown them and tease them because they you guys like Vandy. You guys just want to go for the underdogs, and they stuck with it. And to see that both of them are at the school that they want to be at, and I'm sure there'll be schools that will offer both of these gentlemen money. One Barton Simmons as a GM and Clark Lee as a head coach. But I think they're staying put, and to see this happen in real time and see that now they can fight with the who's as it pertains to recruiting as well, because they had a guy that was committed to Georgia, the quarterback, I forgot his name. Recruiting is not my specialty, and I'll be the first to tell you that, who came on a visit to Nashville this past weekend. And I don't know, that's just amazing to me. That's outstanding to me, and it's seeing that vision that Clark Lee and Barton Simmons have come to life. And before the season started, Diego Pavia was talking a lot. And in my opinion, I'm a huge Diego Pavia fan. He reminds me of Rocky, that Rocky story, the underdog story. That's, a person who don't have the size to play a position or too small to fight like Rocky was. He's too small to play the quarterback position, doesn't have the best arm to play the quarterback position, but he just found a way to win. And when I look at this Vandy program and I think about the things Diego Pavia said prior to the season start, and I think about my thought process and hearing some of the things that he was saying prior to the season, my thought process automatically was, dude, you're bugging. We will be the team to beat in Tennessee. Yeah, what you guys did last year was pretty daggone good, but it's going to be difficult to do it this season. And then thinking about Tennessee, I wasn't very high on Tennessee heading into the season, but even then I still thought it was kind of pie in the sky for Vandy. They are certainly better than Tennessee. That isn't even a discussion. The discussion is broader for Vandy. You look at Vandy, you say, this is probably a college football playoff team. When you look at Vandy, they do got some tougher games down the stretch. This team is the reason why we love college football so much. It really is. You look at the Vandys of the world and how well they are playing. You look at Cincinnati, how well they're playing. You look at Georgia Tech, how well they are playing. This is for all of us who hate some of the semantics of college football that we deal with in the offseason, albeit the transfer portal or NIL. NIL has brung, I think, a little bit of fair play to college football. I think it has kind of reset the balances. Now, still, the person with the deepest pocket tends to do well in this sport, but there are opportunities, I think more opportunities, and you see like G5 guys like Diego Pavia. I seen him when he was at New Mexico State. I got to see him in a conference championship game against Liberty a few years ago, and I'm like, this quarterback is pretty dynamic. So now what you're starting to see is schools are starting to pay attention to what's going on at the at the G5 level, what's going on at the FCS level, what's going on at the Division II level, because we see Trinidad Chambliss, who came from the D2 level, he's now balling out in Oxford. You see a guy like Diego Pavia a couple of years ago who was balling at the Group of 5 level. There's a kid at San Jose State and Scudero, he's gone. Like, you already know, some of these guys that are balling at these levels, they're gone. Those schools can't afford to keep them. There are greener pastures for these guys. So, I don't know. I think it just speaks on the parity of the sport. Even after, for so long, I feel like there was a huge divide or huge division between what we have in top-tier Power 4 play and then what we have in Group of 5 play. I thought that was a huge, the disparity was stark, to be honest with you. But looking at it, I think it's closed a little bit. I would argue that the American Conference, not saying that their teams are better than the rest of the teams, but I just say when you just look at the competition in the American, even go look in the MAC right now. It's just a bunch of 4-4 teams, 5-3 teams. They're just all the competition level has increased, and I think that's why we're seeing upsets each and every week in this sport that we love and that we hold near and dear to our hearts, just because the competition is at a new level, to be honest with you. So shout out to Vandy, man. Vandy looks damn good. They're 7-1, greener pastures. I'm sure they want to play and get an SEC championship, and that will guarantee us them a spot in the college football playoff. You have greener pastures. Do not let up. Houston. I think a lot of us love the Willie Fritz hire. We saw what he was able to do at Tulane. We say, okay, I think he can get H-Town in the right direction. And I always looked at Willie Fritz as a guy with an enormous chip on his shoulder, just like I look at Diego Pavia. And that's kind of how I identify myself, as a guy with a huge chip on my shoulder as well. He goes and gets a guy like Connor Wegman with another huge chip on his shoulder. And what Connor Wegman was able to do this past weekend was incredible. Ran for 111 yards, threw for 201 yards, 3 total touchdowns. And they beat a team who I felt like, and I know Nino felt this way as well, had an opportunity to reinsert themselves as one of the elites in the Big 12. And that conference, I still don't know who's going to win that conference. Houston looks good. Texas Tech looks really good. Cincy may be the best team in that conference, and BYU is just doing BYU things. And they're tough to beat. I thought Iowa State had them on the ropes this past week, but really, really interesting to see. So that's our Into the News. We're going to start to break down some of these topics we talked about on what's on today's docket, so let's get right to it. Alrighty, so we got the AP Top 25 poll. I'm going to go through the poll, and then I'll tell you what I don't like about the poll. We got Memphis at number 25. The thing that I was talking about that I predicted on the AP Top 25 poll, I said they're going to replace USF with Memphis. They're going to look at strength of schedule. They're going to try to do college football playoff type things that we get very soon, and I'm excited about to see their polls and kind of see the disparity between the AP poll, the college football playoff poll. I'm not saying Memphis shouldn't be in a poll. They should be in the top 25. But Navy, you guys are just going to continue to omit Navy not being in the top 25? I think that's weird. That's really weird to me. We got the Utes of Utah at number 24. Not mad at it. They're a team who reminds me of Georgia Tech in many ways from a physicality perspective, but they're very reliant upon their quarterback, Devin Dampier. And that scares me at times, because if you play a team that's sound defensively the way Texas Tech was sound defensively and say, no, we'll let the rest of your players beat us, you're not going to beat us. The team that decides to do that with Utah will be the team that beats Utah. I promise you they will be. SE at 23. I like SE a lot. I think they were idle this past week, so I'm interested to see what happens with them. Houston, can we get some more love? They're at 22. We got Michigan at 21. I believe Michigan was idle this past week. Texas at 20. Games like that Texas was able to win builds an enormous amount of momentum. The rumors that we heard Saturday morning. Steve Sarkisian is interested in coaching at the NFL level. They're saying that he's interested in taking over the Tennessee Titans job. Charlotte has an opening, and he said, yeah, this date with Mississippi State and Starkville is about to go down. Like, it's about to be an upset. And at one point, I thought it. I believe the score was like 30. It was bad. Was it 38-17, something like that? And to see them lose that game, it was heartbreaking. And now I'm looking at that team because I was like, yo, they should definitely go bowling. But now I don't know. I just don't know because they have some really tough games down the stretch. But that game for Texas is a huge momentum builder. I thought Arch, even with the interception, I thought he played pretty well. I played through some injuries as well, showed some toughness. I think that's what people want to see more of Arch Manning, so I'm not mad at it at all. Missouri at 19. Missouri is... I know Eli Drinkowitz is probably in his office right now doing whatever he's doing, whether it's recruiting or getting ready for this upcoming week. He's like, yo, we should be undefeated. Like, I know that's the feeling. Like, 3-3 at halftime. We played the type of game we want to play. We liked our running game more than we liked their running game. We thought this style of game fit us. And Vandy still was able to win the game. It has to be frustrating for them. OU, how do you guys look at OU right now? Like, you think as a program they're happy to be here? Like, they're in the SEC. They're competing. They competed last year, too. They just didn't win some games, so they were definitely competing last year. How do you think the Brass feels now? How do you think Jim Nagy is feeling right now? How do you think Brent Venables is feeling right now? How do you think Ben Arbuckle is feeling right now? How do you think John Mateer is feeling right now? So when I think about Oklahoma, I think about expectations versus reality. What were their expectations heading into the season? What were their expectations after the first few games into the season? And then how does that compare to reality and where they're at now? Still an opportunity for them to do some big things and make a college football playoff. But when you start to look at the losses, they damn near need to win out. Cincinnati, one of the best stories in college football, and this team just isn't talked about enough. They are a really good team. I owe Scott Satterfield so many apologies. He is doing an outstanding job coaching this year. And when we start to get into Coach of the Year talk, Mike Elko name is up there. Believe it or not, Kirk Cignetti name should be up there again. I think Lane Kiffin is very deserving. Ryan Day has just been quiet, humble, getting the job done. Kalen DeBoer certainly deserves to be in a conversation, but so does Scott Satterfield. He deserves to be in a conversation. One of the best stories in football, just not being talked about a lot. Louisville at number 16, this doesn't surprise me. Louisville's just going to do Louisville-type things. I continue to believe in the culture that Jeff Brom and company has built there, the accountability, the discipline, the attention to detail is something that you're going to get with Jeff Brom coach teams. And I love that you get that with Jeff Brom coach teams. 15, UVA, they had a scare this week in UNC in Chapel Hill. Definitely had a scare. They was able to win in the overtime. Is that like their third overtime victory this year? So that shows you that Tony Elliott's company come ready to play. And even if it's a game that they doesn't go the way that they expected to play or the way that they prepared to play, but they still found a way to win, it's easier to lose in this sport than it is to win. I'm just telling you. Tennessee's at 14, stacking up victories, continue to win games. I'll tell you what, Josh Heupel's done an outstanding job this year. Hats off, bro, because I did not see that coming. I really didn't. Texas Tech at 13. Hate to hear that Hammond's out. I believe he's out for the rest of the year with an ACL tear. How healthy is Barron Morton? A lot of questions I have about the team in Lubbock, but I'm sure that Coach McGuire and company would definitely figure it out. We got Notre Dame at 12, and then we got BYU in Miami at 10. Why did we have ties there, bro? Like, BYU is undefeated. Miami has a loss. Miami ended up blowing out Stanford, but they struggled a little bit in the earlier part of that game. If you watched it, I don't know. BYU should be higher than them. Vandy at number 9. Georgia Tech at number 8. Georgia Tech is undefeated. It's just interesting. BYU is undefeated. It's just interesting how they treat some of these undefeated teams that aren't in the top two dogs, the superpower conferences, as I like to call them. We got Ole Miss at number 7. Like I said, they can play with anybody. Oregon is at number 6. And I don't think 1 through 6, I don't think changed at all. You got Ohio State still at 1. You got Indiana still at 2. Texas A&M, who I think can beat any team any given Saturday, and they got more ways that they can beat you. That team is very dangerous. Marcel Reed, the only thing I ask, bro, get them turnovers down. You get them turnovers down, they can beat anybody. And Alabama, this was a game where Nick Saban would have found a way to win this game the way that he won this game. I wasn't sure Kalen DeBoer had that in this repertoire to be able to win the game like that. So that was pretty impressive. Alrighty, we talked enough about this AP Top 25. Let's go ahead and get into our next story. This Brian Kelly firing. So, Brian Kelly was fired last night. I think I caught one of my dog Jalen. Shout out to Jalen Wilson, man, of CFB Nation, and Just Jalen on YouTube. One of the best storytellers, probably the best storyteller in the college football space. His videos, he tells outstanding stories about teams and, you know, how good they were when they were, you know, at the mountaintop, and then when they went free falling. He just tells outstanding stories. So he gave me a call, told me that Brian Kelly was fired at LSU, and it wasn't a surprise. Like, I remember the beginning of the season hearing a lot of people, because they looked at the roster, and I don't blame them. They looked at the roster. This is one of the best constructed rosters in all of the sport. And you say to yourself, with this roster, Brian Kelly has no excuse. And with a guy like Garrett Nussmeier at quarterback, this team should win a lot of ball games and have capabilities of winning it all. I believe I omitted LSU from my college football playoff. And the reason I did was because my lack of belief in Brian Kelly. I don't know what it is. I'm not sure what went wrong. Because you look at the days when Mike Denbrock was the offensive coordinator there at LSU, you saw teams that could score. I think they were number one in scoring in 2022 and 2023. And they were able to put up points in bunches this weekend. We saw a little bit of back and forth between, well, mostly Brian Kelly talking to Joe Sloan, like, yo, what are we doing? Like, trying to figure out what are we doing. It's heartbreaking when coaches get fired because all coaches think, hey, I'm the guy for this job. I know I can lead this team to the promised land. And then we were talking behind the scenes kind of in CFB Nation and in one of our chats, and we were saying, yo, hey, what job does he get next? Like, does he go to Penn State? I was like, maybe. Or maybe he ends up in television. I'm not sure. I'm sure he still wants to coach. There'll definitely be a job out there for him because there's a lot of jobs right now. You're looking at, of course, he's not going to go to LSU, but they have a job open. Florida has a job opening. Penn State has a job opening. UCLA has a job opening. Virginia Tech has a job opening. UAB, he's not going to there. Not to none of the last three teams I mentioned. So you start really deep diving. And at Stanford, not sure what was the agreement with Frank Wright, but I continue to hear that was the agreement was for him to be an interim guy until they figure out where they're going after Coach Taylor was fired. So a lot of openings here. I think this coaching carousel is going to be crazy. I think what we're going to see happen, though, is some of these coordinators who are, 40 and under will be like, yo, it's their time. We're going to have to push it back a year because you got some big dogs that are still here. So let's get into some of the little idiosyncrasies about the firing. We'll talk about the buyout. We'll talk about some of that stuff and what it looks like. Also, I forgot to mention during the last segment that Navy was at the 26th spot for others receiving votes. I thought that was worth mentioning. So, $54 million buyout. I believe that's one of the second highest, maybe, behind Jimbo Fisher's, like, ridiculous, what was it, $70-some million buyout at Texas A&M. And we started to look at LSU. Like I said, beginning of the season, you felt really good about them. Like, is there a better team with more balance offensively and defensively in the country than them? So we had high expectations, but for some reason, I just did not trust Brian Kelly, and I continued to say it. And I would even get, pushed for, like, what is it about them that you just don't trust? I was like, yo, there's just times that they have opportunities to do something really special, and they just don't do it. They always seem to fizzle out. Or they always seem to, like, have a game where they just get dominated. Like, last year, it was Alabama when Jalen Milroe went off. And then it was the second half, I believe, of the 2023 season where we see Jordan Travis go nuclear against them. And Keon Coleman had a coming out party that game as well. It just always seemed to have that game. And this game this past weekend was certainly BTA against Texas A&M at home. Yeah, one of the best home field advantages in college football, and you get dominated the way you get dominated at home. That's not supposed to happen. That's not supposed to happen. And these SEC fan bases, one thing about these SEC fan bases, they are very knowledgeable. Very knowledgeable. They're listening to sports talk radio. They know everything they need to know about this team. So the fact that, we started hearing chants of fire Kelly in the first quarter, very reminiscent of what we seen in Gainesville just a couple of weeks ago when they were saying fire Napier. this is SEC country. It is what it is. This is a sport of what have you done for me lately. College football is very much a sport of what have you done for me lately. I don't care what your resume looks like. If we think you are qualified and we hired you to be here, we expect you to get results here. And that just did not happen, right? And so they were 5-3 overall, 2-3 in SEC play. And my thought process with Brian Kelly is this: hey, if you're okay with mediocrity, he's gonna get you there. He's gonna recruit really well. He's gonna have some splashes and some spots where you're gonna be like, wow, this is one of the best teams in the country. But you be like, yo, how we always end up around 8-4? At some point, that's going to get frustrating. That's going to get really, really frustrating. So I started to look here, and I started to say we got LSU, we got Penn State, we got Florida, we got Arkansas, who kind of promised to devote more resources to the football program. I don't know if that was just like a recruiting gig to say, hey, a bigger coach, if you're interested, we're willing to spend more money here. You got Oklahoma State. I think when I started to look at the tiers, I don't think Stillwater is as plentiful as it used to be. Because when you look at roster constructions, just pay attention to the rosters in the Big 12. They had one of the worst rosters heading into the season. So it was no surprise when Coach Gundy got fired. And it's kid didn't have any help. So Virginia Tech is on this list. Now that Virginia Tech is devoting and they put the numbers in action and they got Bruce Arians helping with their spot, I deem their spot a little bit better than I probably would have put it like D tier initially. I probably put that job around C tier now. UCLA would be D tier for me only because they got some financial problem within the athletic department, so that's why they would be there. Stanford, I'm not sure where I would kind of place them at now. It'll be interesting. They'll probably be D tier as well. And then you look at UAB, that they have a job open as well because they just fired Trent Dilfer not too long ago. So there's some outstanding jobs here. And James Franklin is going to take one of them. More likely than not, Brian Kelly is going to take one of them. So when, if you are a Will Stein, you're like, damn. you're like, damn. And he'll probably still get a job, but you're just like, yo, I thought this was about to be my year. If you were Glenn Schumann, dog, I thought this was about to be my year. I've put the work in. So I think we're going to see a really interesting coaches carousel because there's some guys that we didn't expect to be on the market. Also, some openings we didn't expect to be on the market. And guess what? We're not done. Every week for the last 3 weeks, we've had Black Sundays. And a coach continues to get fired every week. And I believe Billy Napier ended up getting one of these jobs too. So it's just going to be interesting to see how everything works out. So, Scott Woodward, how are LSU fans feeling about him as your athletic director? Because a lot of people felt like this wasn't really a slam dunk hire. We remember him and then the whole accent change, and people were making fun of that. But who do you go get now that's an absolute home run hit? I believe these top 3 teams with openings in Penn State and in Gainesville with Florida and in Baton Rouge and LSU all think that slam dunk hire that the fan base will be ecstatic about. I believe Auburn's going to have an opening soon as well, but they were able to win this weekend. I think if they didn't win, Hugh Freeze would have gotten fired. I think Lane Kiffin is the guy that all these coaches want. Because when you start to look at it, Kirby ain't going nowhere. Ryan Day ain't going nowhere. Even though the thought will probably cross his mind because those fans in Columbus are ruthless. And I don't know if I said Dan Lanning already, but he's not going to the Reds. So you start to look at people, and then I think a lot of people look at Lane Kiffin and say, hey, you're doing an outstanding job in Oxford. Really great developer of the quarterback position. We see that your system works, and you've been able to do it with less a lot of times, even though you guys did spend monies immediately after the 2023 season. I think all of these jobs deem him as the home run hit. So now he's holding all the cards. He's holding all the cards with these programs. He's like, hey, how much are you guys willing to pay me? Also, how much are you willing to spend to get the roster that I want? Also, how many guarantees you going to give me before I get here? And he's probably report back to Ole Miss, hey, these are what these teams willing to give me. And I have a feeling that they're willing to match. So it's crazy to see a guy who was once kind of exiled from the sport to see him have the success that he has now. And I'm so happy for Lane Kiffin, but I'm sure he's the home run hit for all of them. I don't think there's a lot of home run hits out there because I think some of the jobs that people deem or people that are like, well, hey, if we can get Dan Lanning, ain't going nowhere. He's not going to get resources more plentiful than Eugene. It's just difficult to do that. So that's my spiel on that. Am I surprised that he got fired? No, I'm not at all. This is a results-driven business, one of the most result-driven businesses that there is, and it's a what have you done for me lately? So if you're not yielding results, and we feel like, hey, we've given you every resource, every opportunity to be successful, and you're not successful, respectfully, we appreciate everything you've done for us, but we got to move on. That's what college football is. Let's talk about a segment I'm really excited to talk about. Let's talk about the G5 college football playoff a bit. Alrighty, so we got some interesting things going on here, and I know you guys see the Mountain West on the screen. We're going to talk about the AAC first. Let's pull that up now. So we got some interesting things going on with the AAC. As you see at the very top, we got Navy, who's 5-0 in the conference, 7-0 overall, 5 games remaining. Tulane, who's 6-1 overall, 3-0 in the conference. They have 5 games remaining. Memphis is 7-1, 3-1 in the conference. They have 4 games remaining. North Texas is 7-1 overall, 3-1 in the conference. They have 4 games remaining. South Florida 6-2 overall, 3-1 in the conference. They have 4 games remaining. So I think in order to deliver this the way that I want it delivered, let's go back a bit. Let's talk about Navy a little bit. They're 5-0 in the conference. They play North Texas this weekend. Shame on ESPN for not making the trip to Dallas-Fort Worth for this North Texas and Navy game. I felt like this could have been a game day game. I really do feel like College Game Day could have been there. It could have been huge for the G5 level, and they say nah. And part of me wonder if Memphis doesn't lose to UAB 9 days ago, does ESPN College Game Day make the trip to Memphis in that raucous environment for College Game Day? Part of me really wonders that, because I see how they move, bro. Like, I see, okay, this week they're going to a Big 12 game. That's cool. That's what's up. It's a really good Big 12 game, and I'm happy for it, of course, but part of me just feel like they should have won there. But Navy has North Texas, Notre Dame on the schedule, USF, Memphis, and Army. The Army game's going to always be tough because they play each other every year. Memphis is really tough out. USF is a really tough out. Notre Dame is a really tough out. North Texas is a really tough out. So we're standing here looking at a Navy team who's 7-0, right? Really tough schedule. But if they can finish with only 1 or 2 losses, play in the conference championship, win the conference championship, they're getting the G5 bid. There's not really a lot of math to do, honestly. I guess it would depend on what some of these other teams do, but I don't think there's a lot of math to do. So let's talk about Tulane. Right, doing a really good job there in Tulane. Love what they bring to the table. 6-1, 3-0 overall in conference. They play UTSA, Memphis, FAU, who's a tough out, Temple, who's a really tough out, and then they play Navy as well. So these are some really tough games for Coach Summerall and company. Really tough games. So we're about to get some cannibalization, but we're about to get some quality football more than anything. Like, we can talk about cannibalization all we want, but we're about to get a lot of quality football in the AAC, and that's spectacular, honestly. We got Memphis, who's 7-1 overall, 3-1 in league play. Just beat South Florida, and of course, what AP Poll does, let's go ahead and put them in the top 25. They're more deserving than Navy because of XYZ. All right. But on their schedule, they play Rice. Rice is a tough out. Ask UConn about Rice. Rice is a tough out. They got Temple, and they also play Navy on their schedule. They play UTSA, they play Memphis, they play FAU, Temple, and they play Navy. Those are tough games. Temple can hang in there with anybody, and Temple almost beat Navy if it wasn't for some last game second heroics by Horvath. If it wasn't for those heroics, they won that game. Memphis, who's 7-1 overall, they're 3-1 in league play. We talked about who they beat, and then they play Rice, Tulane, ECU, and Navy. Interesting. ECU is a tough out. Of course, Navy's going to get them all they can have. Tulane is a tough game. Now you're starting to see here, like, oh, this is what the governor's talking about. You're about to get a bunch of quality play in a really good conference. And honestly, I would rank the play in this conference as the 3rd or 4th best conference in college football, P4 included, just with the type of play you get in this conference. Like, you guys know I love Big 12 play. It's just an exciting brand of football. But, of course, everybody's going to put SEC and then probably Big Ten. That'll be their order. I will have Big 12 probably number one for what I'm most excited for. So even if you have, just based on the brand and the style of ball, me personally, I would probably go, SEC has been brilliant this year. So SEC, Big 12 and SEC is interchangeable. And then maybe the American Conference, I was about to say AAC, and then, pick your poison with the Big Ten and the ACC. Like, there's just been outstanding play in this conference, and I'm so intrigued with this conference. And we have a close relationship with this conference as well. And I don't know. It's just something special about this. So now let's talk about North Texas. Everybody remembers the game Friday night. A lot of us thought, hey, man, we might get fireworks down there. And for the first half, we did get fireworks. One pivotal play right before the half, muff punt. USF was able to get more points before, and North Texas never adjusted from that. Also, Drew Messermaker threw some interceptions. One of the best stories in college football this season, by the way. But they're 7-1. I already talked about the loss to USF, but they play Navy, UAB. This is kind of a different team you're playing now that Trent Dilfer is gone. Rice, who I said could compete with anybody, and Temple. Casey Keeler, Evan Simon and company, who can also compete with anybody. So you guys are really starting to see, all right, this is why the governor believes that the winner of this conference is probably going to get that G5 spot. There's still a chance for Mountain West. We are going to talk about Mountain West. And then we got South Florida. They lost to Miami. Just lost. Tough game to Memphis. And then they still play UTSA. Tough out. They play Navy, UAB, and they play Rice. I'm not sure who's going to win this conference. I think if I had to make a bet, Navy's schedule is just tough, man. I would want to go Navy, but their schedule is so tough. Like, they can lose to North Texas. They can also beat them. Notre Dame, I don't think they beat them. I don't. They'll compete. I don't think they beat them. And he got South Florida, Memphis, and Army. You got to say a loss is coming somewhere, right? And I love Memphis when they're at home. If they can keep their quarterback clean and upright, they do have an opportunity to win this. Don't count North Texas out. And also, Tulane is just right there chilling. We don't want nobody to talk about us. We cool. Coach Summerall and company, they cool band right there. I don't know who wins this conference. I want to say Navy right now. I love the way Memphis plays, and I know that they're going to win at home. They just always going to handle business at home. They just can't afford to let up. But Rice, they can beat. Tulane will be a tough one. ECU will be a tough one. Navy will be a tough one. It's just too tough. You look at everybody's schedule, you just say it's just too tough. Don't know who wins this conference, but my thought process and my belief is the winner of this conference is almost guaranteed a spot in that college football playoff. But let's talk about the Mountain West. And the Mountain West are going to say, not so fast, my friend. So let's talk about the Mountain West. Really interesting things here with the Mountain West, because I don't think many people expected Hawaii to make the surge that they've made this year. 8 games through the season, they're already bowl eligible. Hawaii, that's outstanding. 6-2 on the season, right? And then Boise State, it looked rough early in the season. We saw the loss in Notre Dame. We saw the loss to USF, and I'm like, wow. And it wasn't. It was from a physical perspective, the way that they lost, that was probably more surprising to me than anything, to be completely transparent with you. But they play Fresno State, tough out. Fresno State is a really tough out. They play San Diego State. San Diego, Sean Lewis has that team budding, bro. Budding program. Don't be surprised if he gets some power 4 looks. Don't be surprised at all. And to see Colorado kind of doing this and San Diego State doing this, and the reason that I mentioned those in Boulder, Colorado, not Colorado State, not the Rams. So, and the reason I mentioned it is because the offensive coordinator at Colorado, Deion's first year was Sean Lewis, and just didn't work out. But team is definitely turning in the right direction. So that Boise State, to get back to where I was at, they play Fresno State, San Diego State, Colorado State, and Utah. That's what's left on their schedule. Could you see a loss on that schedule? Yes. They should be able to handle business with Colorado State and Utah State. But my fear is, granted, they have no losses in the conference, which bodes really well for them. They can lose to Fresno State. Make no mistake about it. And I was talking to my guy, Brian Browning, who's probably the biggest CFB Nation supporter. Shout out to the game. He was saying that San Diego State team scares him. And I don't hear Brian talk like that a lot. So to hear him say that, I know that it's real. And I know he's truly has fear for San Diego State. Let's look at Hawaii. Second in the conference, right? 6-2, they're 3-1 in conference play. I'm sorry, 13, because we just talked about. I'm sorry, we talked about Boise. Let's talk about San Diego State. They're 6-1 in conference, 3-1 overall. They face Wyoming, Hawaii, Wyoming's a tough out. Hawaii's they're right there in the thick of things. They play Boise State and they play San Jose State. It's so tough to say who's going to win this conference. Hawaii, they're 6-2. They got San Jose State on their schedule. They got San Diego State on their schedule. They got UNLV, Wyoming on their schedule as well. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with Hawaii down the stretch. And then UNLV is really talented. Early in the season, I'm like, they should win it. But seeing them play Boise State, I don't trust them against Boise State. Like, even last year, we was like, hey, man, UNLV can get Boise State in conference championship. It didn't show up. And I know Dan Mullen is the coach there, and he's going to get some looks, too, at the Power 4 level. I just don't know. I see losses coming for all of these teams. And I think just when you look at the overall gauntlet of what you go through in the Mountain West, which is a really good conference, but what you go through in the American, I think the winner of the American is who actually gets that spot. So, love talking the Group of 5 ball. Haven't had an opportunity to talk it much. I do try to include a few Group of 5 previews every week. That's something I try to do, but I'm just saying a segment just dedicated to G5 ball. I want to do that more often. So, let's get into a couple of these game previews. Got some interesting games on the slate. I know you guys are probably confused about this first one, but I think it's going to be a better game than advertised. Still think Ohio State wins. That's a great foreshadow, but it is what it is. So, let's get into it. So, we got Penn State, Ohio State. My phone is continuing to ring off of the daggone hook. But that's neither here nor there. Let's talk about this game. So we got Penn State, Ohio State. This game is in Columbus. Saturday, November 1st. Big noon Saturday game. And I'm going to go ahead and tell you guys why I believe this game is going to be closer than advertised. Because this game is personal for Jim Knowles. And games like that where they have a personal undertone to them, like, yo, you guys didn't even try to match what Penn State was paying me. You guys just let me go. And like, I didn't help formulate the team we had last year from a defensive stance and help us win a national championship. I think this game is really personal for Jim Knowles. And that's why I think this game, even with Ethan Grunkemeyer as a starting quarterback, I believe that's why this game is going to be closer than advertised. So we look at these two teams. It's called a rivalry, but it's been Ohio State dominated, especially the last 8 years. Ohio State do have a lead, 25-14 games, and that 8 straight games date back to 2017. It's almost frustrating to see everything that's happened with Penn State. You look at their roster, you do your research, and if you're a college football content creator, you get it. Whether you are you don't even have to be a creator. But if you're a creator, you're a journalist, you're an analyst on TV, you broadcast games, or you're just a fan who isn't a casual, you're 1%er like we always like to say here at Governor College Football, you care about the sport, you do copious amounts of research heading into the season. So, like, I will go into rabbit holes, honestly, studying Baylor. I'm like, this is a damn good team. I don't think the Sawyer Robson guy gets enough credit. To see them lay an egg this year is frustrating. Penn State, I'm saying they're one of the best constructed rosters in the country. Seeing them lay an egg this season, losing 4 straight games, all 4 of which they had opportunities to win. All 4 of which they had opportunities to win. Even a terrible start against UCLA, they still had opportunities to win that game. It's frustrating when you see it. Clemson is another one. I said, wow, they're returning a lot of production. I trust what Dabo Swinney and company is doing down there. I'm hearing a lot of great things about them. If you could only see the aura when they arrived at ACC Media Days, they did not sit with anybody on Radio Row. They said, we're going to stand behind Radio Row and y'all going to come to us. And that's exactly what they did. But if you think CFB Nation is going to leave where they at and go to you got another thing coming, man. We reached out to every school for every Media Days we went to this year. And every school did their best chance to get us in contact with them. So I'm making a mess over here. But Clemson, and we have a great relationship with Clemson. Don't think that at all. Whenever we want to go to a Clemson game, we go. Outstanding relationship with them. But like I said, if you were there, the aura was real. If you go back and look at some of the live streams when we were on CFB Nation, at the CFB Nation, on Twitter, and YouTube, of course. When we were there, you could literally see Clemson players standing behind us, and you see a mob. It just looked like there was a mob behind us. That was Clemson in that oral pool. But, yes, you do a lot of research for these teams trying to figure out, well, who's going to win this conference? Who's going to win that conference? And I see my dog, Josh Pate, getting a lot of hate for his SEC quarterback rankings that he did. And I agree with him when he say, like, yo, where's your rankings? Like, if you didn't do a ranking or you didn't release it, like, you don't got the right to criticize somebody. And I agree with that 100%. That's probably the most frustrating part. It's like, you do the research, you do the work, things don't work out the way you see it, but that's the unexpected thing of college football. It is what it is. So Penn State has not been the team that we expected them to be. Let's talk about Ryan Day. He got this team surging, 7-0 currently. And college football isn't right if we don't get that moment where Ohio State fans are just pissed off at Ryan Day. We haven't seen that this year. I know it's weird for the fan base, because I know in my heart of hearts, this is what I do know. This is something that I do know. It's something that I will speak on 100%. It dropped. I was trying to put these headphones up. Didn't want them on my table. On my desk, rather. So this is the thing that I do know about Ohio State fans. Very educated, but they get frustrated with Ryan Day, and really because of his lackluster performance in the game, right? And these fans have kind of been quiet. They haven't really had anything to complain about. And let me tell you, if this game is competitive, those fans are coming out. So we don't have a full season of college football yet until we get that moment with Ohio State fans, very educated fans. They say, man, Ryan Day need to go. We've had that moment every year the last 4 years. We haven't had that moment this year. Is it coming this weekend? I'm not saying they're going to lose. I 100% believe Ohio State going to win. But Jim Knowles is going to be prepared this game. Julian Sands is going to see defensively something he hasn't seen all year. I truly believe that. And even though we've seen teams score points in bunches against this team, Jim Knowles will be ready for this game. I can promise you that. So, Ohio State looked really good this year. The Matt Patricia hire, outstanding. Brian Hartline is working really well as the offensive coordinator this year. It's looked really good. So let's talk about Terry Smith. He's an interim head coach who took over this team. I believe he's only coached in one game since James Franklin was fired. And was that the Iowa game? Really close game. They had their opportunities. They weren't able to win. Disappointed is probably an understatement for how I feel about Andy Kotelnicki and both Jim Knowles to this point, because I looked at this coordinator pairing as one of the best coordinator pairings in the country, and I've been underwhelmed, like extremely underwhelmed. Like, there's times that Penn State offense just stutters. We're seeing the same thing. I'm like, there should be development. Drew Aller, the running back room that you guys got active in the portal and getting some pieces to help you guys with Ross on the outside, with Trevor Pena on the outside, and I just haven't seen that maturation. I just haven't seen it, and it needs to happen. So let's talk about what Andy Kotelnicki likes to do. This is a run-oriented offense, and they like to run and set up the passing. And I think at times they play it safe. I think they rely on good defensive play. And the only time you see them get really aggressive is when they're down. And we saw it on the West Coast this year and on the West Coast last year. We seen it in the UCLA game where they sped it up. And they were actually able to put up points in bunches when they decided to do that. We also seen it last year when they played USC and they got down early, which they were able to actually come back and win that game. They scored points in bunches. Those are kind of the only times I seen Andy Kotelnicki say, hey, let's pass the rock. Let's get aggressive. And I wanted this team coming into the season, I wanted it to not be about the coaching, but to be about the players and the fact that they have outstanding players on this roster, and ultimately it ended up being about the coaching. They were idle this past week, even though Drew Allen won't be playing this upcoming weekend, an opportunity to rest, recover, but also an opportunity to prepare against a really good team and probably the best team in the country in a lot of people's minds, right? So Kaytron Allen is a guy I like at running back. At CFB Nation, we've always been a little bit higher on Kaytron Allen than Nick Singleton. I'm not sure what it's been, but just huge Kaytron Allen fan. 612 yards on the season, 9 touchdowns. Kid is legit. I talked a little bit about Ethan Grunkmeyer. He will be the guy, and it's pretty good for him to be able to get 2 weeks to prepare for this game, especially the best defense in the country. Matt Patricia, the disguises that they'll run man on one side of the field, run cover two on the other side of the field. They disguise coverage really well. Devontae Ross is a guy I would like to see get the ball more. I would like to see them be more aggressive. He seems to make plays, and he seems to want to make plays, but his opportunities and his target share is so low. He just don't get those opportunities to make plays. But in order for Penn State to have a fighting chance to win this game, they're going to have to get some off-script plays. Like something happened, a short route, one of these wide receivers turn it up and make a big play of it. Because you're going to Columbus, it's going to be a really difficult game. Tough environment, one of the best environments in all of college football. Then you're playing the best defense in all of college football. This game is going to be a tough one. So we always start with the away team first. So we talked about Jim Knowles, his scheme, multiple 4-2-5, disguise pressure, simulated pressure, not afraid of mug fronts. Also very versatile in coverage. That's what you want to get from a Jim Knowles coach team. We've seen it during his time in Stillwater, and we've seen it in his tenure at Columbus, and we have seen it at times this year, but I have been disappointed in the outcome of some of these games, and as well as their output and their execution. I've been disappointed in those as well. But that's what you're going to get with a Jim Knowles coach team. They're 5th in passing defense. So hopefully they can give, for Penn State fans, they can give Julian Sayin a little bit of fits. But they're 29th in the country in scoring defense. And I thought they'd be a little bit better in that category. I just look at this team. I look at Danny Diddy Sutton. I look at some of the players that they have on the back end, and I think to myself, why aren't they having more success? And that's kind of what bothers me more than anything, just the lack of success that they're getting, and extremely, extremely frustrating. So let's talk about Brian Hartline, and they've been able to have a lot of success with Julian Sayin this year, giving them great reads. He's not turning the ball over much at all. He does have 3 interceptions on the season, 19 touchdowns, 1,800 yards passing, 80% completion percentage. He's playing outstanding ball, complimentary ball. I know Jeremiah Smith, he's still having a really good season thus far this season, 602 yards, 7 touchdowns. I'm sure he wants more of an evolution offensively, but I think Ohio State is very intelligent in the fact that they know they have an outstanding defense. They have running back by committee, and they do have playmakers on the outside. But offensively, we're not going to do anything to lose this game. I think that's what you get in this year with this team. But it'll start each week. They were idle this past week as well, so they've had 2 weeks to prepare. But each week, they seem to be giving Julian Sayin just a little bit more. And that's something that I like about this team. Matt Patricia defensively, dude. We talk about somebody who's just made an instant impact. I thought there would be a natural drop-off. One, with the amount of production that they sent to the NFL a season ago. Also, the respect that I have for Jim Knowles as one of the best coordinators on the defensive side of the ball. But the fact that they've went up to the next level, we see Caleb Downs doing really fun things this year. And what Matt Patricia has his team doing is just confusing the hell out of teams. Like, I'm telling you, like, this is NFL level stuff, and that's what you're going to get with this system. It's multiple fronts. It's NFL, level back end play. It's their ability to disguise with their zone, disguise with their man, give you both man and zone looks, give you a man blitz, give you a zone blitz. That's what Matt Patricia is able to do with this team, and they're just truly, truly outstanding. Number 1 in the nation in total defense, only allowing 216 yards per game. You don't get a lot of opportunities. They will force turnovers. They're number 1 in the nation in scoring defense at just under 6 points per game. This team is the real deal. This team is the real deal, and it all starts and ends for me with Caleb Downs, who I think is the best player in college football. I truly believe that he's the best player in college football. So I love what this team brings to the table. I really do. So let's get into some advanced metrics. Yards per play, Ohio State is averaging 6.7 yards per play. And most teams are in that 6 range. Penn State is averaging 5.1 yards per play. That's, I think, when I look at a metric and I'm circling a metric immediately, it's this metric right here. It's absolutely this metric right here. Because there's no way Penn State is only averaging 5. And when I tell you the average is somewhere around 6.2-ish, and they're only averaging 5 yards per play, and you're playing the best defense in all of college football, that's when I get worried. That is 100% where I get worried, right? And you look at this Ohio State defense. Like I said, just how good they are. And I love the stable of running backs Ohio State have, too. Bo Jackson is leading the way with 433 yards and 68 carries. You do have 2 tutties on the season. And I just don't know how Penn State sustains drives. Because what you don't want for Jim Knowles and company in that defense is for them to be tired defensively. That's not what you want. It's really not what you want. But the fact, what makes Ohio State balance is they're always going to be physical at the point of attack, more attrition on the line of scrimmage. That's something you're going to always get from them. Smart quarterback play. They got dogs on the outside. It's not just Jeremiah Smith. Carnell Tate is the real deal as well. And then, like I said, they have a stable of running backs. They really do. So I'm just interested in seeing how this thing pans out for both of these teams, really. Because I don't want to say it's a trap game for Ohio State because it's just been business as usual for Ohio State. Bro, they allowing 131 yards passing per game. That's 3rd in the country. 3rd in the country. 8th in the country in rushing yards per game. That's top 10 in both categories. Like, when we say this defense is good, this defense is damn good. Turnover margin, Ohio State is +6 on the season. Penn State is a -2 on the season. Third down conversion rate defensively. On defense, my dog Moon, what's happening, Playboy? On defense, Ohio State, red zone defense is 46.2%. That makes them best in the country. They play outstanding red zone defense. And Penn State offense is at an 84% clip, 71. So you got a strength versus a weakness, bro. I just don't like this. I don't like this matchup at all. For me, it's can Penn State sustain long drives and keep their defense off of the field. If this is one of those time of possession things and Ohio State wins the time of possession by 34 minutes or more, and not by like the spirit, but they have the ball 34 minutes, and let's say the other team only has it like 26 minutes or more, Penn State has no chance in hell to win this game. It has to be reversed for Penn State to even have a chance to win this game. So, can Penn State sustain long drives? One of the biggest questions I had for this game. Can they sustain long drives? Can they score in the red zone? Because threes are not going to cut it. We've seen Ohio State have low-scoring games like they had versus Texas. We've seen them have high-scoring games like they were able to put up points versus Illinois. Can Penn State sustain long drives? And Moon says, without a shadow of a doubt, no. I think I saw some things that I like. I think playing Iowa, who's also really good defensively, Phil Parker is one of the best defensive coordinators in all of college football. They was able to have a little bit of success there. I think from a physicality perspective, not a scheme, just a physical perspective, I think it'll help them prepare for this game. But can Penn State have long drives? And we already talked about tempo. Ohio State is at 32 minutes a game. Penn State's at 27 minutes a game. That has to be reversed if they have a chance. Jim knows this is a revenge game. You going to Happy Valley and looking at this week in Week 10 to say, this is what we played a team who didn't respect me. They're going to be ready. They're going to be ready. And if Drew Allen was playing in this game, I would have more faith in Penn State. I think this game is going to be closer than advertised, though. I think it's going to be a better game than advertised. That's the reason I want to cover it. But give me Ohio State to win this game. I say they'll win it. They'll win it. I don't know what the spread is, but I doubt they cover the spread, though. I don't think they win by more than 10. I think it's going to be one of those really good, hard-nosed fort games. But don't let Penn State get the time of possession. They start, confusing Julian Sand, which has been really difficult to do. It'll be interesting. But, yeah, give me Ohio State to win this game. Let's go ahead and move on to this next game. Revenge game we talked about all season. Yeah, we talked about it all season, Moon. Yes, it was supposed to be a revenge game. Just has not happened yet. So, let's look at the Cincinnati-Utah game. College game days coming to town. Such a great time for college football fans in both great cities of Salt Lake and the great city of Cincinnati, Ohio. We got this game at 10:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And Moon, I was saying earlier that this game is late, and you know how me and Jalen do the recaps. I was like, I would rather watch this game than do a recap. So if we're going to do a recap, we got to do a late recap. Like the late, you know what I'm saying, show. Like, I'm talking about 1 in the morning, 2 in the morning. Ain't nobody going to be watching, but we going to do it anyway, right? So these two teams, fun fact, have never faced each other. I think that's really interesting. Of course, Cincinnati come in, moving over from the G5 ranks to the P4 ranks, and the Utah coming from the Pac-12 to the Big 12. So it makes a lot of sense. But I look at both of these two teams. Both of them are trending in the right direction. Both of these teams have outstanding coaches, and I don't want you all to think that I dislike Scott Satterfield. I just didn't see it as a fit. I also thought he was on the hot seat watch. When we started talking about Black Sunday and a lot of coaches being fired this year, I just didn't see how well they'll be able to compete. Now, let me tell you when my mind started to switch about this team. It was before the season. I can tell you when it happened. It was around July 4th in Fort Worth, Texas, for the Big 12 Media Days, and we had an opportunity to talk to this team. I had an opportunity to sit down and talk with their quarterback, Brendan Sorsby, and he was laser focused. And you guys should go back and watch it. He was laser focused in his discussions. He was talking about just some of the disappointments he had in the prior season, how he thought they left a lot of meat on the bone, and then his expectations. I thought they were a bit lofty, but the thing I love about going to a media days is that you may feel a way about a team prior to, but you'll feel differently, whether it's better or worse. Like, you'll feel differently about the team after you talk to them. Like, TCU was one of those teams. it's like, yeah, what Sonny Dykes going to do this year? But then we talked to everybody, man. And after I had the opportunity to talk to Bud Clark, I'm like, nah, TCU is better than advertised. Utah looked amazing in the first half, tailed off in the second half, praying for Colorado. Yeah, things are bad for Colorado. But some of that is Colorado's fault. I can't sit here and lie. But Utah was another team. I didn't talk to Devin Dampier on camera. And some of the best conversations I actually had with people were off camera, which is frustrating. I talked to Andy Staples. I've seen Andy Staples at like 3 events now. And every event I see him at, I always dab him up and say what's up. And we always end up talking about shoes at some point. But we were just talking about Utah. And I was just like, yo, Utah looks legit. Like, you see Spencer Fano there. You see Devin Dampier there. And Devin Dampier has this aura about him. He has this presence about him. Like, when you walk around, you know he in the building. Shorter in stature. When you shorter in stature, you just had this chip on your shoulder. But he was just walking around, like, just full of energy. And Moon began the Utah talk before that. But I think it increased the moment after he seen him at media days. He's like, okay, the way I feel about them. And that was how I felt about Baylor. I looked at, some of them teams that we saw there, and some of them were small. But, like, Baylor came in looking like an NFL team. I'm like, these guys may be legit. They may be as legit as I think they were. And they're not. They're not at all. They're nowhere close to that. But Cincinnati, 17th in the country, looking damn good right now. I think they should be higher in the country. They put hands and feet on Baylor this past weekend, and they're red hot. They're red hot. And this game is going to be a simple game. A lot of times when I do previews and predictions, I like to really get into the nuances, and I will still do that here. But to me, it comes down to one thing. Defensively, can you be disciplined? Can you be gap sound? Can you make sure that number 4 on offense don't get loose? Texas Tech did it amazingly. Romello Height did an outstanding job in the 3-3-5 that they played there because he held his ground. Nope, I dare you to hand the ball off. Hand it off. Like, because you're not coming this way. You have to play sound against Devin Dampier. It's a lot of moving pieces. You see a lot of different motions. It's a lot of bells and whistles. But at the end of the day, if you're going to beat Utah, you better stop number 4. Because once he's sicko like Diego Pavia. Because once he gets hit a couple times, he's comfortable. Like, he's ready to play then. But you have to play sound defensively. I haven't even got to the point of, where I'm talking about the schemes and stuff, but you got to play sound defensively. This game is really simple. Win a war of attrition and don't let number 4 if Cincinnati beat you. That's what it come down to. So Scott Satterfield gave my apologies in the opening, and I'm not sure I can apologize enough. And I'm not sure, and I think I apologize for myself, but I also apologize for some of my brothers at CFB Nation because a lot of us didn't like this hire. We're like, you go from Luke Fickell to Scott Satterfield. I'm not sure. Then you see after year 1, it was an instant, even though they did go from the group of 5 to the Power 5 conference and Power 4 conference and the Big 12, you still saw a natural drop-off. And then you look at Louisville. We saw an uptick with Louisville. They were in the ACC Conference Championship. You see the attention to details and the discipline that Jeff Brown brings to that team. So that was our thought process. And when you evaluate and you do the amount of research that we do, you looked at this, you said, I don't think this is a good fit. But Brendon Sorsby should be one of the stories of college football, and not enough people are talking about him. Why people aren't talking about Brendon Sorsby and this Cincinnati team is mind-boggling to me. When you think about the game that they lost, was the first game of the season. They lost to Nebraska, neutral site, but it was pretty much, in my opinion, it was a Nebraska home game. And you saw that they had opportunities to win a game. Nebraska had every reason to turn that game into a blowout, but that game came down to the last drive, and Brendon Sorsby is legit. And the one thing I think that slips the minds of a lot of people when it comes to Cincinnati, because you don't expect them to be a really physical team, because you don't expect a lot of Big 12 teams to be physical. This team is really physical, and they want to win that war of attrition on the line of scrimmage. They 100% want to win that war of attrition on the line of scrimmage. So I love what I'm seeing out of Cincinnati this year. Kyle Whittingham, the standard. Just some coaches he's a standard of what a top-tier coach in the sport looks like, because he's continuously had success there. I know they had a down year last year, but they got active. They figured out the pieces that they were missing. They were able to get those pieces. And top 15 nationally in both offense and defense. Kyle Whittingham, that's what he brings to the table. That's 100% what he brings to the table. So we always talk about the away team first, and when we start to break down the schemes. I'm a Brad Glenn guy. I really am. run-heavy gap scheme, leveraging play action, and quarterback mobility. And we've seen Brendon Sorsby get active this year. 829 yards on the season, 19 touchdowns, just one interception. He's playing sound football, mistake-free football. He can beat you with his legs. He can beat you in the pocket. He can beat you on those off-script plays out of the pocket. This kid is the real deal, and he's not being talked about enough. He's not being talked about enough. He just hasn't been. And this team is so legit. I tell you, this team is so legit. And they're scary good, bro. I promise you they're scary good. It's just like one of those things where, of course, we know that in this here sport of college football, SEC is just always going to get top tier everything. And Big Ten has been there, especially with them winning the last 2 national championships. So I don't think the Big 12 gets the coverage it deserves. But before the season started, a lot of you guys heard us talking about the Big 12 because we love the Big 12. Big 12 is probably, it was the ACC for the longest, but the Big 12 is my favorite conference. But the American is surging, bro. Like, I may go on an all G5 Media Day tour. I told Moon that already. But love what Brendon Sorsby's bringing to the table with his 20 touchdowns, 1 interception on the season. You can't be mad at that at all. You really can't. The kid is just playing outstanding. I think Evan Pryor provides a lot of balance for this attack as well. He's averaging good yardage per carry. Got 478 yards on the season. And then Allen is a red zone nightmare at wideout. So I love what this team brings to the table. But their scheme is, I think their scheme changes sometimes too. I think they want to be run heavy in a gap system, but sometimes they end up being pass heavy. They're 29th nationally in total offense. They're 4th in red zone efficiency at 97%. Teams that have high red zone efficiency are typically teams that win a lot of ball games. That's typically what you get. It's a team who wins a lot of ball games. And their drives are surgical. They don't mind them little old school. Yeah, let's go have a 9-play, 10-play, 11-play, 12-play, 13-play drive. Yeah, let's go do that. So let's talk about this defense. It's a pressure-driven front with hybrid linebackers emphasizing pursuit and discipline. And that's what you need in the Big 12. That's 100% what you need in the Big 12. I think the thing about this game, though, you really have to win a war of attrition on the line of scrimmage because not many teams are built the way that Utah is built, right? So this defense does give up a lot of yardage per game, 268 yards per game. That's 71st in the country. It's not good at all. They rank 28th nationally in scoring defense. So it's a bend, don't break type of defense. This is what you're going to get with them. And I really like what Cincinnati brings to the table, both offensively and defensively. Yes, they give up a lot of yards, but try to go score in that red zone. It's a little bit difficult. So let's talk about Beck and his scheme. We hear positionalist basketball a lot. He kind of has like a positionalist because we've seen him, run myriads of running backs there. But motion-heavy attack, designed to stretch leverage and angles. And this system is built around Devin Dampier and his skill set. 267 rushing yards per game. That's 5th in the country, bro. Parker, 503 yards on the season, right? Devin Dampier, 1,300 yards, 13 touchdowns, 4 interceptions on the season. He's so difficult to stop, but he's the engine that runs that off, and it's hard to stop because they can run the ball too. He's not the only one that can run. But for me, the key in winning this game, if you play gap sound, you understand your run fits, you play with great defensive integrity, you have the opportunity to beat them, but you cannot let Devin Dampier get you for a 15-yarder here or a 20-yarder there, or it's going to be tough. And then Morgan Scaly, who's supposed to be the heir apparent once Kyle Winahan decides to hang it up, 9th nationally in scoring defense at 14.3 points per game, 7th in passing defense at 148 yards per game, and their front floor plays with elite pad level. That's what you're going to get with them. You get gap control, and the secondary thrives in man coverage. They dare you to beat them on the outside. They dare you to beat them. This team is in the Big 12, but they don't play like Big 12 defenses play. I need everybody to understand that. This team, and I've said it for the last 3 years, reminds me of a team that plays in the SEC with the physicality and their approach and their identity in winning the war of attrition on the line of scrimmage. That's 100% who Utah is. And shout out to Moon. Moon did the work. He did the research, and he thought this team was going to be really good. And they're right here in the thick of things. And they have an opportunity to be really special this year. Yards per play. We got Utah at 7, Cincinnati at 6.6. I like both of those numbers. From what I've seen so far this year, 6.2 seems to be the average. If I see teams in 5, I say, yeah, you're struggling a little bit. Turnover margin. Cincinnati, +5. They're +5 not because their defense forces a lot of turnovers, and they've been okay in that department, but what it's been is their offense isn't going to turn over the ball. That's what's impressive about them. Utah at +3, red zone efficiency. We told you earlier, Cincinnati is 4th in the country at a 97% clip, and Utah, not too shabby, they're 24th in the country at 91.7%. Those third down conversions, Utah is at 54%. That's 3rd in the country. Cincinnati's at 47%. This is why both of these teams are top 25 teams. If you can play that success rate game on 3rd down and you have a dynamic quarterback where if it's 3rd and 5 or less, 3rd and 4 or less, you're willing to get them 2 plays. Now, Cincinnati, if you have any chance of winning this game, you got to slow down Devin Dampier. That's going to be a crazy environment. It's tough to go into Salt Lake City and leave out with a win. It's really tough, but you got to play sound. You got to play the best football you played all year. You really do. You have to play the best football you played all year. I know offensively they're going to play mistake-free, and they need to keep it that way. They got to play mistake-free ball, but defensively they have to play with gap integrity. They got to understand their running fits, and they cannot let Devin Dampier win this game. You cannot. If he gets going, they lose. They lose every time. So I got a bold prediction for this one. Cincinnati wins this game because I do think they'll play gap sound. I think there will be times Utah has success, but I think some of their drives will end in a 3 instead of a touchdown. And it's Cincinnati, they're great, 4th in the country in red zone efficiency. So when they do get into the red area, they plan on scoring in that red area. I know Utah fans are going to be upset with me, but give me Cincinnati to win this game 31-27 in a shootout. This game probably doesn't end until 1 in the morning, after 1 in the morning. So if you're a real college football fan, do you watch college football or do you just skim through it? When I say that, that's what I mean. You're going to be up at 1 a.m. watching the game? We will. I can promise you that. Fun episode today. I always love these Monday episodes. And these shows continue to be longer and longer. I couldn't tell you the last time. My goal for the shows to hit an hour mark, but it's difficult to do it with the new format because we got to cover everything we need to cover, man. We went from, 4 segments to... Really now we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 opening, not really a segment, but into the news 6 segments. So of course, I average around 12 minutes. That's why we're at $120 now. As I always like to say, there are no more victories in the sport that survive and advances while college football has the greatest regular season. Until next time, you all take care. Governor of college football, we're going to recap ACC.
Hey, that's
Great
CJ
defensive
on
minds.
the
They have to be better on that side of the ball.